Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we'll be doing compression tests on these two cars. Big Red has low mileage and Tractor seems to be struggling, so we'll compare the health of these two engines.
Whoa, it's on fire!
So restoration on Big Red is now complete. The plan was to sell this car, but thanks to COVID and our current lockdowns, we're stuck with this car a wee while longer. And if you're watching this in the future, this is May of the year 2020. That's right, this is year 0, our first year of lockdowns. You know, we used to be an optimistic people. We thought we'd have a vaccine in 18 months. We thought COVID-19 was going to be as bad as it gets until the virus mutated and COVID-23 came along. Anyway, back to these cars. Like I said, they both have the same engines. They have the 4A FE powerhouse, but Tractor seems to be sick at the moment. Big Red has done 177,000 kilometers and Tractor has done 226,000 kilometers. This car blows blue smoke on startup and white smoke afterwards. So on the surface, it's got more wear and tear. To explain what might be going on and what a compression test is, we'll go to the whiteboard to explain some engineering.
And in here we're looking at a single combustion chamber. This engine has 4 cylinders. Now before the power stroke, you have a mixture of fuel and air. This plug ignites the mixture. The pressure from the explosion pushes the piston down, and the movement rotates the crankshaft, making power. If there is loss of pressure, you'll have less downforce on the piston and therefore loss of power. And a compression test will test how well the combustion chamber is sealed. With most older engines, the piston rings will get worn down, so as a result, you lose pressure past the rings. And on the upstroke, oil will be sucked into the combustion chamber. When your engine burns oil, you get the blue smoke. The next most common problem where you can lose pressure is with a blown head gasket. The head gasket seals the head of the engine to the main block. They are made of composite materials which can fail with high pressure or overheating. You have coolant and oil ports running between the head and the block, so you can have gases leaking out and water and oil sucked in on the downstroke. If you have oil moving in, you will have blue smoke. If you have coolant, you will have white smoke. And now the next problem. You have air and fuel coming through the intake port, or just air if you have a GDI engine, and you have burnt gases leaving through the exhaust port. These valves open and close through the combustion cycle. Just before ignition, these will shut. If you have a bent rod, or if you have excessive carbon buildup on these valves, they will not seal properly, so you will have loss of compression. And lastly, you can have cracks in the head or the block, or cracks in the piston, causing you to lose pressure. So a compression test will simply show if you have compression loss, and you'll need to investigate where the problem is. And now we'll go back to the compression test. Here we'll have a look at a compression test kit, and this is a cheap generic test kit you can get from Amazon for around $20. I'll put my affiliate link in the description below if you wanted to get one. It comes with a gauge and it reads in bar and PSI. We have a rubber hose, it comes with a standard spark plug fitting, and you have 4 other adapters. There is a gasket, but it's a good idea to put oil or grease for a better seal. The hose clips into the gauge and it's ready to go.
And now we'll start the compression test. We'll start with Tractor.
Before you start, you want to warm up your engine, but don't have it too hot. Usually 1 to 2 minutes is enough. You want to disable fuel and spark to all cylinders. we have a fuse for the electronic fuel injection, and if you pull this out, you'll disable the fuel pump. And in the kick panel in this car, you want to pull out the ignition fuse, which will stop spark. Pull out the ignition lead and remove the spark plug. Typically pressure readings are around 150 psi, but that can range anywhere between 100 to 200 psi depending on your engine, and there's also a difference between test kits, so keep that in mind. It's a bit fouled with oil on the thread. Screw the thread into your spark plug hole by hand and get it reasonably tight. Clip your gauge into the hose, make sure it's secure with a click. You're working with high pressure, so safety is important. You should be wearing some safety glasses. Now you'll need to crank the car. Do about 5 compressions. And the reading for cylinder 1 is 195 psi, so that's good. Now let the pressure out before you remove the hose. If you forget to do this, you could lose fingers. And now we'll do a wet test with oil. This will form a thin layer on top of your pistons, which will seal your piston rings. So this will test if there's loss of compression around your piston rings. Now the oil will be taking up volume, so expect your pressure to go up by 20 to 30 psi. If it increases by more than 50 psi, that's an indication of worn piston rings. Now this is very important. You should not put more than 5 mils or a cap full of oil into your engine. If you put too much oil in, the engine will hydrolock, which will cause catastrophic damage. You could bend a rod or put a hole in your piston. Squirt the oil in and do the test again. And we have a reading of 220 psi. And you need to get rid of this oil now, because if you don't and you leave it to the end, you'll have oil in all 4 cylinders, and when you start your car you could damage your auto sensors and catalytic converter. And now a demonstration on Big Red. Whoa, it's on fire! Joking, it's fine. Keep the car running for about 20 seconds. Dry test on cylinder 2 is 200 psi. Wet test on cylinder 2 is 235 psi. Dry test on cylinder 3 is 200 psi. Wet test on cylinder 3 is 235 psi. Dry test on 4 is 200 psi. Wet test on 4 is 220 psi. If your worst cylinder is 15% lower than your best cylinder, then you have a problem. So in our case, the best reading was 200 psi. So if we had a reading below 170 psi, that would indicate compression loss. And as you can see, our lowest was 195 psi. So this engine is almost perfect.
So Tractor seems to be in better shape than I thought, but how does it compare to Big Red?
And our first dry test is 195 psi. Wet test on 1 is 235. Dry test on 2 is 195. Wet test on 2 is 220 psi. Dry test on 3 is 195 psi. Wet test on 3 is 225 psi. Dry test on cylinder 4 is 185 psi. Wet test on 4 is 210 psi.
So to my surprise, things aren't so bad for a tractor. It's not time for the crusher just yet. The oil might be from valve grommets, so I'll replace those in a future video, and we'll investigate the white smoke.
And just a quick update, we've recently moved to level 1 lockdown in New Zealand, and I was able to take Big Red to our local park and sell. Pre-COVID, these cars were worth around $3,000 to $4,000, but I decided to drop my price to $2,500 due to our uncertain financial times. And after 1 week, I didn't get a single inquiry. This place is usually full, but there were only a few cars up for sale. On some days my car was the only one there. I wonder if this person managed to sell the wet mattress. After a couple of weeks I tried again and got one offer of $2,400, and I was happy with that. I decided to list it on the Facebook marketplace, and I ended up with 26 inquiries. One person wanted to swap my car for a moped, but I ended up with 5 serious offers of around $2,500. Which was unexpected. People will be just driving my car this weekend, and I'm hoping to sell it. I'll keep you updated in the next video.
But that's it for now. Keep safe, and I'll see you in the next one.